Aggregatia. Amalgamus. The composite kooky mascots for this season's title card. Conceived in a flash of inspiration thanks to decades-old advertising. Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. We've seen crossovers of many forms on this show, between publishers, characters who inhabit the same world but seldom interact, and even including real-life celebrities. Today's type is a little different. Superheroes and snacks. Combos are those tiny cylinders of pretzel or cracker filled with a dry paste of any number of flavors. Jalapeno, cheddar cheese, pepperoni pizza. Because in the US, when we run out of junk food ideas, we just cram two junk foods together. God bless America. Comic readers of the mid-90s will likely have seen an ad like this, promoting the snacks while featuring a bizarre-looking figure dubbed Combo Man, looking like pieces of various Marvel characters stacked on top of each other to create a Frankensteinian entity, like a horrifying game of human Jenga. Disassembly required.
No disassemble.
A contest was held to see who could identify each segment. Most of the features are pretty obvious, but some may be more obscure or generic-looking. Eventually, 3 cards would offer an explanation of each part, and the powers they provided. From top to bottom, it's the Hulk, Cyclops, Iron Man, Magneto, the Punisher, Captain America, Sabretooth, Carnage, Daredevil, specifically an armored costume he sported for a bit, Spider-Man, Century, the Human Torch, Silver Surfer, and Gambit. Hats and shirts of the hero could be purchased, and winners of the contest would get a varsity jacket. Of course, if this was only relegated to a couple of promos, apparel, and some phone cards, he wouldn't get an entire episode of this show, unless I was seriously hurting for material. Indeed, he got his own one-shot mini-comic, which was free with a purchase of combos. That's why I'm taking issue with Combo Man number 1. Written by Mark Grunwald, with art by Hector Collazo, Greg Adams, and Mark Bernardo. Let's see if this marketing gimmick makes the sale, or collects dust in the clearance aisle. The cover isn't too shabby, actually. You have the main character showing off some of his abilities, while minions of AIM, the advanced idea mechanics, jump out of attack choppers and fire on him. The background is empty, and you imagine the guy must be attacking someone out of frame. Either that or he's just showing off and is too oblivious to the platoon out to get him. But still, it looks good. Presented by the makers of Combo's Snacks. Next month, the thrilling debut of Cracklin' Oat Bran Woman. We begin with Combo Man already in a fight, shot at by AIM, and thinking how he's in over his head, despite his cool collection of powers. How did I, run-of-the-mill Wick Wilder, get into such a mess? Probably because you couldn't decide on one character to cosplay as, and took a chance on merging your top 14 picks and hoped that would win you the costume contest.
Initiate flashback!
We jump back in time 10 minutes, outside Danmark Laboratories, where Rick is with 3 classmates, who've had a history of bullying him, and he hopes that joining their group will get them to stop. To that end, they want him to sneak into the building, to the office of their chem teacher, Professor Boyd, who works nights in the labs, and steal his copy of the upcoming midterm. So Rick makes his way in through a window. I wonder if you can be arrested for breaking and entering if you don't actually break anything. He wonders the same thing about peeping Toms if their names aren't actually Tom. When his stomach starts grumbling, he settles it by snacking on, what else? Combos, a bag pulled from his backpack that also has some comics inside. When he reaches Boyd's office, he notices the lights are still on. What are those weird sounds? The prof's experimenting on colobus monkeys again, and their revolution has begun. Through the window, he sees AIM interrogate the teacher, wanting his device that expands human potential, which is still in development. Rick tries creating a distraction so the prof can escape, but that just causes AIM thugs to chase him through the hall, and thanks to a wrong turn, the student is in front of a door to a live experiment. An unlocked door that opens for some reason, which envelops him in energy and scatters his comics. Getting caught in a blast from an untested experiment is probably going to hurt their value with the comic book grading companies. Despite the armed villains after him and being covered in smoke, he feels another combo will soothe his fears. After a badoom sound, he emerges as Combo Man, telling the evil beekeepers they'll have to deal with him. I know you'd have split personalities, but this is ridiculous. He is a little weirded out, but he still uses powers as if they come naturally to him. That brings us to the present, as CB does a little flying, a little web shooting. But how? How does I shot web? Uses some magnetism and crushes AIM's weapons. He tells the professor to go call the police, just as he faces a new enemy, the Super Adaptoid. An actual recurring villain in Marvel, he's kind of their version of DC's Amazo, an android who can replicate powers and abilities of whomever it sees within a 10-foot radius. Combo is aware of this and opts to overpower the bot before it copies all his skills. So, of course, that's when he reverts to his normal self, right in front of his teacher. Boyd doubts that this transformation could have happened because of his ray, like Rick claims, yet that doesn't stop the lad from recalling his backpack of comics and snacks and tests a theory, eating another combo, which restores his altered form. Awful considerate of the evil robot to wait this all out, huh, folks? Yes, of course. Combos are the key to my transformation into Combo Man. And there was no legal disclaimer on the bag saying they wouldn't give me superpowers. He then hits the droid with all the powers he can muster simultaneously, and the Super Adaptoid super can't adapt to it. After it's destroyed and the rest of AIM are webbed up, Boyd thanks Rick for the save, but asks what he was doing in the labs at all. Combo Man responds that he was learning an important lesson, then flies off. That really didn't answer my question. The police are gonna wanna... Oh, that kid is getting an automatic F on his midterm. Combo tells himself that having to pretend to be something you're not, just to fit in, means you're trying to fit in with the wrong crowd. And the story ends with his intent to tell his bullies to count him out.
Oh boy, so you actually learned something today? What is this, Full House?
That was Combo Man #1, and it was okay for a promo mini-comic that's less than half the length of a regular issue. I'll give Grunwald this much, he managed to cram a lot into the 7 or 8 pages of actual story, and make it work about as well as I think most could have. Basics of the premise, creation of the hero, the threat, all without being too wordy. It feels like getting the bare minimum of an origin story, not unlike some early comics heroes, such as the Ferret's original iteration. However, as with some of those older tales, we don't get a lot on Rick Wilder, the normal alter ego. At best, he seems like discount Peter Parker, a bullied student, though this one seems willing to commit petty crimes to avoid further social abuse. At the very least, his nervousness at trespassing shows he wasn't all that comfortable with it, which is the closest we get to validation of the lesson at the end. Something I wager they put in to give the faintest appearance of pathos, even if it's part of something meant to sell a product.
Now I know! And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
We also know that Rick tends to eat his feelings, seemingly a compulsive eater that chooses less than healthy snacks. He eats when he's anxious, when he's scared for his life. Even with the superpowers, the least realistic thing about this is that the guy isn't 20 pounds overweight. Some of the dialogue could feel a little awkward, like Rick mentioning how the experiment door was opening, which, to be fair, was probably for the sake of brevity in a small book, and his rather hokey use of the word cheese in stressful situations. Because, you know, combos have cheese-adjacent filling. One of Combo's dialogue bubbles also has this asterisk. Usually that's associated with a caption of some kind, but I couldn't find one on this page or any other. Weird. The art, though, is pretty good, on par with the mid-90s. Despite a few points where the coloring seems to bleed in where it normally shouldn't, some pages feel very cramped with panels, but again, itty-bitty comic that's kinda got a lot of things to rush along. This is probably the same reason why we see Combo Man use maybe half the powers allegedly at his disposal. I guess Mars Incorporated didn't think it would be a great look if their hero eviscerated his foes with Carnage's symbiote or vaporized them with the power cosmic. A silly little comic intended to help sell more cheesy, carbo-loaded foodstuffs. All in all, the story doesn't go quite as far with the premise as a typical comic might, but it's fine for what it is. Much like combos themselves, it may not be the most nutritious, but it's not bad for an occasional nosh. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.